Good day, Dr. Opfer and my esteemed colleagues in English 525. On your various points on the compass, I am coming to you from my home in Fredericksburg, Virginia today. It's great to be here with y'all and look forward to seeing what all your presentations are like. So let's talk about the border, which is always a hot button issue. And we're going to talk about the border today, specifically as it relates to the migrant situation that we've seen of late with Haitians coming in from Mexico. So for this assignment, I was really hoping to find a non-biased source that only called balls and strikes. Therefore, the better to gauge how people reacted to them in the comments section. Because I'm married to an English lady, I thought, okay, the BBC generally, in my estimation, calls it the way they see it, with balls and strikes right down the middle. So I thought that'd be a great place to start in approaching this issue, and therefore we can better gauge how people are reacting to the story itself. Interestingly, so when I found a story about the border last week, I learned quickly that the BBC does not allow for reader comments of any kind. This is probably a good for the universe, but not particularly good for my assignment. So, to find out what people were thinking about this story, I decided to go to a very highly intellectual venue where people are very respectful of one another and don't talk over one another in any way. You guys might have heard of it. It's called Twitter. So, here's the headline for the story. Grim echoes of history and images of Haitians at US-Mexico border. Right away, we have to ask, does the headline in fact show bias? Upon first reading, it doesn't look like it's showing its hand or if it's sympathetic to either the US government's position or to the migrants' position, or if it takes any position at all. However, does the word grim perhaps infect the way that people would react to this story? Again, because the BBC allows no commentary on its page, in order to gauge how the public is reacting to the story, we have to go to social media. So if we start with Grimm, we have to see how people are reacting to the headline itself. Naturally, reactions are about as polarizing as one could imagine when it comes to an issue that's as divisive as immigration. I see reactions on both sides of the aisle, and we'll get to this in a minute, but some of the reactions on Twitter had nothing to do with the story itself and more to do with people reinforcing their own beliefs. On one side, people are saying, okay, these migrants are coming to the United States from broken or shithole countries once again. On the other side, people are, oh, there we go. Law enforcement is being too harsh yet again. Is there, in fact, a meeting of the minds possible in the middle somehow? How can you get people to actually discuss the issue rather than yelling at one another? And I don't pretend to have the answer to that, but because so much of our lives in the 21st century are spent online, where most of our interactions take place, including with you all today, how can we preserve nuance, especially when it comes to an issue as divisive as immigration? So here's the tweet that the BBC sent out. It matches precisely the headline. I can tell you from my own experience working in the news that with a tweet you have, let's say, half a second to get someone's attention, so you want to do it as quickly as possible. Throw in some let's say, charged words in there if you want to get as much reaction as you can. The BBC, in their tweet, did not do that, which is to their credit. So once again, even if they're not trying to bias the readership one way or another, people are going to bring their biases and they're going to react to the story itself, whether just to the headline, to the tweet, or to the content therein. So we have to talk about this harrowing unfortunate, horrific photo of a Haitian migrant carrying what appears to be food containers for his, let's say, his family and friends under the bridge across the Rio Grande in Del Rio, Texas, with a gentleman on horseback who is either employed by the government or is a private contractor. We don't know. But he's grabbing this man, and it's has rather unfortunate connotations given the history of the United States when it comes to race relations and to immigration as well. What I found informative about the article is that the word whip or whipping are used not less than a half dozen times in the article. It's also instructive that as violent as the agent is being with the migrant, he is not, in fact, whipping the man on horseback. So, is it even fair? Is it possible to have this discussion without it devolving into a boxing match? There's no whipping going on. The word whipping appears several times in the article, and reactors on both sides are gluing onto that for their own purposes, which we shall see now. So Twitter users on both sides of the issue were seizing upon the word whipping, or it's even if it's not whipping, everything connotating with whipping for their own purposes. One tweeter here uses the tried and true method of distraction by saying, because we don't see whipping here, these are all, everything you see on the agent's body and wearing on the horse, these are all things, accoutrements that one would use in a horse in any situation. And because he's not being whipped, this is fake news. I've emphasized that term there. We've heard that much the past half decade. And I believe that this shows his, I wasn't supposed to say it was a man or woman, but it's a he, the tweeter's political biases right away. On the other side, we have rounding up the quarter horse. They are human beings, not cattle. That is the author's emphasis. So what this person is saying on the opposite side, reacting to the story, is that no matter who the migrants are, where they're coming from, they are human beings deserving of the same dignity as everyone else, even if they're not being whipped. So what we see in all of the reactions to the story, it falls into two basic camps, the timbre of the overall reactions. On the one side, we see whipping, even if it's not actually being shown in the photograph, it bears connotations of slavery in the United States. The other side responds, because the migrant is not being whipped, there is no connection to slavery, and we can all just move on with our lives. Rather simplistic argument. I'm not trying to judge the argument, but that is what the other side is saying in the tweets that I looked at. Back to Team A, because the Haitian man is black and the federal agent appears to be Caucasian, this reinforces those echoes of slavery in the United States. The other side, because the white agent isn't actually whipping, this is fake news and should go away. One side would ask, are we any better now than when slavery was outlawed in the 1860s? The response is, because we're not seeing the whipping, it's not connotations of slavery, therefore the snowflakes are overreacting to the photo itself. So racial discussions are always going to be polarizing, especially in the United States. We're seeing that in microcosm right now with the discussion of critical race theory being taught, even when it has nothing to do with the discussion at hand. It's now being used as a football in any discussions, online or political. However, we are a nation of immigrants. Unless you're descended from a woolly mammoth or a dinosaur, your ancestors came to this continent from somewhere else, whether it was 10, 50, 100, or 5,000 years ago. Naturally, that's been lost entirely in this discussion of the migrants at the Haitian border, because that would be a very inconvenient fact. Also, as we've seen in not just the BBC's review or the BBC story, but also in people's reaction, words are critical. Whether it's Grimm or more heated terms like whipping. Even if it's not being shown due to its historic connotations, this is what people are reacting to. And because of that, nuance gets entirely lost. You have Team A in this one corner, you have Team B in this other corner, and rather than discussing what they are doing in these social media, excuse me, these social media responses is they're just coming at each other. There's no discussion. Any hope of nuance is lost, or more importantly, what can be done. Rather, it's all about just the whipping or the not whipping, and anything else is lost in the middle. This is a problem, I believe, for anything in the 21st century because we don't talk to one another in person, and a lot of it is just yelling across the divide, whether about this specific story or others. And once again, I don't pretend to have the answer, but it is something that we necessarily have to continue to look for if we're going to agree that there is an objective truth, whether it comes to immigration or any other issue. I would like to thank you all for being here today. Thank you for giving me your time and your patience, and I look forward to discussing this presentation with you. If you feel that I have missed the mark entirely, I look forward to hearing that. Criticisms are, of course, always welcome. And if you like this video, then subscribe. Oh, wait, no, that's for something else. Sorry. I look forward to watching all of your presentations as well. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you on the Moodle discussion boards.